So we've reached here. We have our Visual Studio open and we're ready to go. Now, one thing I wanted to show you as we begin is that Visual Studio is fully customizable for what you like, what you want to see, and how you want to see it, from your font style, where your windows are at. If you see here, I have a Solution Explorer. That's how you navigate the files and folders related to the projects that you're working on. There's a thumbtack that hides it. I can tack it, then see it auto hides. I have other options: Team Explorer, Class View Notifications. If I want to pin that over here on the side, then you have a different view for team, class, etc. So just know that if you don't like what you see in Visual Studio, you can probably reconfigure it to have something that you like to see. But I wanted to show you how that is fully customizable. Now, this is like the first time that I opened Adobe Photoshop, and I thought I was going to make beautiful pictures and modify beautiful pictures and have, well, I opened it for the first time and I had a blank screen. Same thing, same experience I got the first time I opened Pro Tools and tried to mix some music. What do you do from here? So, we'll start with the basics. Click File, New, Project. You're going to get this dialog box. And what you're going to see here is the opportunity to select various templates. What these templates are is they provide, and I'm going to introduce a new term, boilerplate code, which is code that has to be used or needs to be used, that's used over and over again. It's not necessarily creative. It's not necessarily anything that you would want to write if it can exist. It can be done for you. So Visual Studio says, okay, I'm going to provide you with a bunch of different templates, and I'm going to do this work for you out of the gate, kind of some of this administrative work so that you don't have to do it. I'm trying to make things easier for you. So what you're looking at is under the Visual C# options, all of the different templates associated with Visual C#. The same thing with Visual Basic, F#, C++, Python. You can install other tools and plugins. We're going to focus on Visual C#, and we're going to focus on a console application. Now, console application is what you think of when you think of hackers and command lines and that sort of thing. There's a WPF application, which is a beautiful graphical user interface, the way to create rich, environments visually. But those have so much code and so much background information and so many files and folders presented to you out of the gate that it really gets in the way of you understanding what you're doing with code and with the language. We'll get there and we'll get to visual interfaces. But for right now, we're focusing on console applications and writing code that really focuses on what C# is. Now, after you select a console application, you're going to want to name it. Let's say we'll name this First Steps. Now you select a location, and the reason it's asking you to select a location is once we click OK, you see here it says Create Directory for Solution is checked. In this location, Visual Studio is going to create a folder, a directory, and it's going to add all of the files and folders, or all of the other files and folders related to the template that you've selected, console application. It's going to set that up for you in this location. So if you're getting started, I would say don't take the default location. I would say create a folder in My Documents, on your desktop, wherever it is easiest for you to remember, to collect all of the different projects that we're going to be working on in one central place so that you can kind of organize it. And then that folder will actually be named whatever your solution name is by default. Once you click OK, Visual Studio does its magic. Voila! We have a text editor right here. Now this is what I'm talking about, an integrated development environment, because years ago, eons ago, they had text editor programs, they had compiler programs, they had other programs for managing the files, they had other programs for linking, they had all these different programs that they had to fire up and use together in different ways and in different sequences to actually produce a program. What Visual Studio does for us is it takes all of these smaller programs and all these smaller applications and puts them into one big application and integrates them all for us. For debugging, for source control, for testing, for all of these different tools, they're in here for us. And we can build programs, run programs, test programs, debug programs in this integrated development environment. So I want to give you some understand visually of what you're looking at here. In Solution Explorer, think of solutions as containers. They're the largest container when you're thinking about making a Microsoft product or a C# application. A solution is the biggest container. It's where you put all your stuff. Inside of that, you have projects. Our project is called First Steps. You can add other projects. You can have 30 projects. I worked on an application one time that was 30 projects within one solution. So that's the next thing down. Now the projects are actually the first grouping of code that actually is produced as a thing. They can either be DLLs or executables, and we'll get to that later. But this is the next highest level that you need to think of in terms of a container that has stuff that works, that does things. Now I want to show you that this relates, this maps, this solution, this project maps to a folder structure that we had created when we started to set up the template in the application. So if we open File Explorer and I go to a local disk and I go down to the bottom to Tutorials, First Steps, that was created for me by Visual Studio. Let me turn the sound off real quick so you don't hear that annoying click sound. First Steps was created. You'll see here there's a solution.sln, and basically that is a configuration file that describes things that are inside of the solution, like the projects that are involved or that are included. We have a First Steps folder which contains a firststeps.csproj, or the project file. Same thing, it's a configuration file for the most part that contains information about First Steps project. If we added another project into this solution, you would also have that, and you would see that project file in here as well. You'll see there's program.cs, app.config, app.config, bin and obj object folders, properties, etc. So all of this that you see over here in your Solution Explorer maps to a folder structure over here in your File Explorer. And all of that is done for you by Visual Studio. So I want you to have an understanding of what you're creating here in your text editor, saving and organizing here, will actually be in a place that you've specified yourself, so you have some more control over. Because when I first started working with Visual Studio, I would start a project, I would start working, and then I'd be like, oh my gosh, where did I put it? This is how you can know and draw that connection. So we're actually ready to write our first program. I know this was a long couple of videos for introductions, but I wanted to get you set up and have a little bit of an understanding of what your development environment looks like and what we're going to be doing with it and how it relates to the folder structure on your computer.